Good morning. We've made it to August 2020. Believe it or not, here we are. We're all still here, and unfortunately, Mr. Trump is still the president of the United States. It's an unfortunate thing. He should have been impeached a while back. Somehow the Democrats messed that up. Excuse me while I have an allergy. So somehow the Democrats messed that up. They messed up the impeachment. They may get another chance, although we're kind of running out of time. There's only a few months to the election. But there's still some of us who have lived through Watergate and watched an attorney general go to prison. Like this one should be going to prison, the one who is attorney general now. Back in the 70s, Richard Nixon's attorney general, Mitchell, he went to prison. And Barr should be going to prison. He should have been in prison months ago. I don't know what the Democrats are waiting for. I guess for an election, I suppose. But the damage that is being done to our democracy, institutions across the country, and to the culture of this country, the damage is going to be long lasting. What happened up in Portland is, not a mistake. The present administration is going after protesters and trying to sucker them into violent events, so that for the camera and for the news media and for the public, while in October they can show just how horrible and terrible protesters are in Portland and New York and Chicago and whatever other progressive city there is, or democratic city, however you want to look at it, which was pretty similar to what happened in 1968 in Chicago and the riot and the political protests then against Vietnam, and basically the Democratic Party that was split back then into the establishment party and the Progressive Party, the two wings. That has not changed, where you have a Robert Kennedy, very progressive, Eugene McCarthy, very progressive, with Hubert Humphrey, who, believe it or not, was talking about universal health care for everybody back in the 40s after World War II. But he was looked on as a centrist, or a corporate guy, not a corporate guy, but an establishment Democrat, because he was Lyndon Johnson's vice president. And so we missed out on that, for obvious reasons. A couple of guys got assassinated. Robert Kennedy got assassinated, and so they took him out. But the split in the Democratic Party has really never gone away. The progressives, over the many decades since then, up until recently, have been a much smaller voice, and establishment or corporate Democrats have become a much larger voice. And it's unfortunate, because let's take what's happening right this very second. We have Nancy Pelosi and the establishment Democrats playing again with negotiating again. I don't know what they're doing with the Republicans, and messing around with whether it's going to be a $1 trillion or $3 trillion bailout, or survival of our economy, and millions of people and millions of families that are about about to go right over the cliff. And we have the Democratic Party. I'm not sure what they're doing. I don't know whether they're fighting for the principles uh, the worker and holding on to the $600 for families, or whether they're going to just cave in like they've done with the other packages. We don't know. I don't know. I mean, if I had a dollar, I think Nancy Pelosi is going to fall in again. But we'll see. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Democrats stand their ground and put political pressure on the president, or should I just say Mr. Trump or Trump? I can't call him president. It makes me sick. Pressure. There's no greater pressure than political pressure, especially with an election. And you can see, because the election is now so close, the cracks all over the Republican Party. They are going to be swept, possibly swept, if they continue to do what they're doing, because it's just not working. You've got millions of people that are infected with this virus that should have been taken care of long ago, months ago. You've got a president that, after 150,000 people are dead from this virus, he still doesn't know how to put a policy together that probably a second grader could do, of putting a national policy together of, guess what, wearing a mask and staying 6 feet apart, and doing the things you have to do in the 21st century instead of the 15th century or the 12th century during the bubonic plague, when they didn't know some of this stuff, and millions and millions, and a third of the people of the planet died. And the Republican Party and people who follow the Republican Party, seem as if they're living in the 1330s, as if they've got this bubonic plague and it doesn't exist, and they don't care, and so science doesn't matter. We're in the 1330s and we're not wearing masks, and that's it. It's like they haven't learned a thing after 600 years of history. So because we live in a country like that, people who do the right thing are at risk, because if they take their mask off for 5 seconds and they're surrounded by people who aren't following what they're supposed to be doing. I go into stores. I mean, me and my wife have decided we're no longer going into certain stores because they don't manage the mask situation right. They're not managing where people go. They are not limiting how many people come in. I mean, we went to Walmart is one of them, where forget about Walmart, forget about it. They allow as many people in, doesn't matter. The lines go out the door at the cash registers. No, half the people are not wearing masks. It's ridiculous. And not that I'm a Walmart lover to begin with, but we go there every now and then, and we're not going there again until this thing is over. And there are other stores that we've decided we're not going to. You have to do the right thing for yourself. Anyway, we're now heading into August, September, October. 3 months, and then the election. I did that online interactive electoral thing, hundreds of times. Every single time, I'm trying to do a model where there may be some variation, and it really is hard to not see the Democrats sweeping, because states that were purple are turning blue like crazy. I mean, Arizona will most likely go Democratic. Texas is most likely going to go Democratic. Texas is 38 electoral votes. California, Washington, Oregon, the entire West Coast is going blue. No doubt about that. California is 55 electoral votes. New York and the entire New England region is going blue. New Jersey, Pennsylvania, forget about Pennsylvania Republicans, because Biden is from Delaware and is very popular in the Philadelphia region. Pennsylvania is blue. Forget about it. It is not going to be red. So there's not going to be a repeat. So the Republicans are running out of states that have double digit. Forget about 20 electoral votes. They're not getting double digits except for maybe from Tennessee. That's about it. Maybe Missouri, Tennessee, and they're only 10 electoral votes each. Maybe Tennessee has 11. Florida is going to be so blue. This is not going to be the year 2000, and George Bush is the governor, and the whole thing is fixed. Forget it. That's going to be a blue state. I think people in Florida are sick and tired, including many moderate Republicans and the moderates that live in Florida. Look, I went to college in Florida. From Orlando south is going to be solid blue. The Panhandle, which is a little bit more traditional Southern, it's not going to be as red as it was last time. That's for sure. A lot of people who are Republicans are going to be staying home because they're not voting for this guy. He's done nothing, obviously, nothing for jobs. We have just had the worst quarter in my lifetime, which goes back to the 1950s. We have lived through ups and downs all throughout the last many decades. What we just lived through in this past quarter, we're up to somewhere around 40 million people unemployed. People used to freak out that there were 400,000 people unemployed, 300,000 people unemployed. That was a freak out situation. You listen to the guys on the radio, and the Dow Jones Industrials is going down 23 points because, 20 people are unemployed. We've got 40 million people unemployed, if not more. And huge amounts of industry, including the auto industry, including the airplane industry, that these are gigantic manufacturing concerns where there is a lot of good paying jobs, and these things are just ground to a halt. The stock market has bounced back. And the reason why, I hear on the radio all the time, oh, we don't know why the market has gone back up. Well, the reason why the market has gone back up is because the money that went into the market during the past couple of months did not come from the planet Vulcan. It came from the United States Treasury. That's where it came from. And the United States Treasury and this administration provided $2 to $3 trillion. It's been invested now. I've said it before recently. It's been invested into the stock market to keep that market afloat artificially, because there is no economic reason why it's staying up at 26,000 with millions of people unemployed. Really, the world economy is on the edge of collapse. We're collapsing. I mean, I still wake up every morning. I go to work. I've been a banker for 40 years. I see 90% of the cars that used to be on the road are still not on the road. 90%. They're saying half of the people are going back, or a larger portion of people going back. No, they're not. No way. The roads are empty still, comparatively speaking, 80, 90%. I came home just the other day on I-90, and it's usually bumper to bumper between 4 and 7 o'clock. I got home almost as if it was a Sunday morning. There's practically nobody on I-90. So There's nobody driving home because nobody was driving into work. So um, the stock market is going to go eventually. It has to follow eventually. This disconnect that I'm sure that I have heard some people talk about on the TV and radio and internet. This disconnect between the Wall Street, this artificial disconnect between Wall Street going back up and the economy collapsing is going to crunch together eventually. You know, the the laws of nature are still around, and gravity is still around, and the economy falling apart is going to bring that Wall Street down. And my prediction still, that's just a prediction. It's a feeling, but I think it's going to go down to somewhere between 8 and 10,000. That's where it's going to go, because that, in my opinion, because there's no reason, there's no economic engine, there's no economic power, there's no economic um, theory, there's nothing that is actually happening to create wealth at a point where it's still going to be at 26,000, 27,000. That is an enormous amount of energy and money that is being pumped in artificially from the Treasury. And that eventually will end. Now, whether it takes the election to do it or not, I don't know. But one day, at a specific moment, just like all the other times, from the Great Depression in the 20s to right now, the laws of nature have not disappeared. And that stock market is going to collapse if things are not changed on a policy level. So here we have still the Republicans and Democrats on different planets. The Republicans, I'm not quite sure how the people of the United States don't put the entire Republican Party in Leavenworth prison. I don't understand it. They lie to the American public straight out about everything, about jobs, about economy, about military, about education. The Republican Party is about to destroy one of the greatest institutions the United States has ever produced, the U.S. Postal Service. The Republican Party has been after the United States Postal Service since Ronald Reagan in the 1980s. They are trying to destroy one of the greatest communication infrastructures in the history of the planet. You have hundreds of thousands of people that are employed by this institution. They serve the public. They actually do it very well, even though you may be waiting on lines and all that stuff. I wait on lines too. You know what? They serve the public very well. They serve millions of people every week. They do lots of things, whether it's passports and mail and all the other stuff. And the Republican Party is about to blow up that unbelievable institution that every other country in the world would love to have. It's incredible. It is our institution. People who work there are our families, our people. People who live in Iowa, every red state, Iowa, Kansas. How can Republicans be against something as basic as a communication industry like the Postal Service? And by the way, the Postal Service is in the Constitution, and it is Congress's responsibility to fund the Postal Service. It was during a period of time when the Republicans, of course, as much as I disparage the Democrats every now and then, The Republicans are the real bad guys. And the Republicans have gone after the Postal Service for decades. I don't know why, other than uh, that I guess most of them vote Democratic because they're mostly union guys. I guess they're civil servants. I don't know, but it just makes no sense. Actually, a sister-in-law of mine, is a postal worker, is a mailman, mail woman in the South. You know, she delivers every day in one of those trucks, and hot as heck. From what I understood, there wasn't a fan in the truck until recently. I mean, these people work every day and work for us, and the Republican Party is going after them as if they're, monsters from Pluto or something. It's just unbelievable. Republicans love to demonize anybody and everything, including themselves. They're lunatics. So, so that's a couple of the issues that we're dealing with right now. I mean, the election is coming, and the big issues of war, of jobs, of environment, of infrastructure, of mid and long-term policy towards education, still not being dealt with. Every day that goes by, we are losing the race on climate change. Here we are, where I'm sitting in the Northeast. I've lived here my whole life in the Northeast. Um, I have never seen a summer like this. I live in New England. When I first moved up here 30 years ago, there were maybe 3 days where it was 90 degrees or above. It's been above 90 almost every single day this entire summer so far. Almost every day. Very little rain. Now, does that make climate change? No. But it's been a trend over the last 30 years. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. You could see it and feel it. So these issues are not being taken care of. Like I've said in a lot of the other shows that I've done recently, it is only the youth, the generation that is coming up now, that between the ages of 0 and maybe 30 or 40 years old, maybe I would say, you guys have to push the envelope, protest every day, get in the streets every day. It is your constitutional right. The right wing is doing the same thing as it did during the 1960s. They demonize protesters. They demonize them. They have the police, like Nazis, go after protesters who are exercising their constitutional rights as Americans to protest. It's their responsibility to protest and to protest laws that are unjust. Unjust laws are the worst things to have, because you could, there's a very famous conversation during the Nazi Germany era. You know, actually, Hitler came to power. He was voted in and changed many of the laws, and all of the excuse of his generals and all of his officers. Well, we're just following orders. We're just following the law. Or we're just following orders. The Nuremberg trials that the United States and the British and Allies put on to put these, to hang some of these guys who followed orders. If the orders are unjust, if the law is unjust, they're not laws. They're not orders. They're a path to inhumanity. And that is what must change here in the United States. Unjust laws are not law. Slavery should have been broken up long ago. And instead of slavery, we have, since the Civil War and since the since the 1880s, Jim Crow, where you have all these laws that have been put on the books by racists, uh, in the north, south, everywhere. Mostly the South, of course, where African Americans can't vote, they can't live in certain places, they can't have jobs, all of this stuff. They're doing the same. They've been doing the same thing during the last 20, 30 years. Uh, every time that somebody can't is being held up from voting, it's like a lynching. Every single time a policeman not only kills an African American, but simply pulls them over and threatens them, that's a lynching. It's a lynching in the modern sense. And that's why it is, as I've said before, it's all connected. So with that, I think I'll let it go for now. I'll probably do another show later on today. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day.